Well, as the happy hour winds down, you might have that friend or two or that coworker or two. It sometimes very well may be the both of you in cases. I've come across the both of you in these circumstances. I feel like where you should mix in a water because some of the things that are coming out of your mouth and some of your thoughts and some of your language and actions, they don't make all that much sense. So we figured, why not we pull from the audience and judge people? People watching is a great aspect of happy hours. So we took some tweets. You two were very generous to ask the people what's on their mind as week one approaches. Let's look at this one here from Jay Burns. He's got an idea. Here's a thought for you. Home favorites that are giving more than 4.5 points and put them in a money line parlay. So giving more than 4.5 at home and as a favorite. 5 teams fit that category, Stuckey. The Chiefs, Ravens, Commanders, Vikings, Seahawks. A 5-leg money line parlay plus 330. Does Jay Burns need to mix in a water?
Yes, I would say he does. Look, just taking all the favorites in the NFL, especially early on in week one, where there's even more uncertainty, weird things happen in week one. For what it's worth, if you did money line every single week one home favorite of 4.5 points or more, I just ran it here. Over the past 25 years, you'd be down a couple $100. So you'd be down doing that. And then just take a look at last year. Anyone remember the Bengals at home? Joe Burrow getting sacked and Watt dominating that game. They lost to 7-point favorites. How about the Titans losing to the Giants? Giants ended up being a surprise team. You go back to the Bills losing to the Steelers in that weird game 2 years ago. So, yeah, just get the parlay, mix in a water, avoid the parlays. I know you want to get greedy and people have a tendency to do that too often, but just get them out of your vernacular and you'll be better off. So yes, I say needs to mix in a water.
Feels like there's too much of indication for week one. I can sometimes understand, especially when we look at teasers, Raybon, down the road, where you have a better sample size and more of an understanding of what a team looks like. But to go week one, in this case, 5 teams, week one, favored by more than 4.5 at home, what would you caution Jay, who could use a water or two?
I mean, he could use a whole ocean because I would rather just bet on any
a saltwater mix.
Take your money, save your money, and instead just bet individually on each of those underdog money lines. And I guarantee you're going to make more money. Stuckey hit it. We don't know what's going to happen in week one, but we know unpredictable things are going to happen. And that's how we have to react. You got to take what the board is giving you, and that is underdogs. That there's always going to be surprises schematically. There's going to be players that just got a lot better. There's going to be players that got a lot worse. There's going to be so many things in week one that you can't predict, to where you should really never be taking favorites on the money line, but especially in week one, and especially parlaying them. Like, that is, I don't like any of those teams. Like, I would rather bet the money line for the underdog for every single one of those matchups.
Bucks are going to ruin that, by the way. And yeah, and Raybon is right. And you need all of those things to happen for just your one wager. If there's also injury, right? There's just added variance as well. You could have a quarterback go down. And you bring up a good point, Brendan. With the uncertainty early in the season, there's an argument to be made. Look, there's teasers, if you get them at minus 120 or better, and you're crossing 3 and 7, have a lot of value betting the NFL. But even more so later in the year, once the markets become more efficient, and then you really know you're crossing those 2 key numbers. So be careful with those early on as well. But yeah, we need some waters here. Brought some Fiji for our friends.
Yeah. Load up, fill the water bottle if you brought it from work into the establishment. That might not be such a bad idea. I'll mix one in too. Okay, well, Raybon brought up a good point about why not just take, of those 5 teams that fit that mold that Jay brought up, one team that's not included in this would be, one team that is involved as a favorite, the Baltimore Ravens. They are the longest favorite on the board for week one. They're laying 10 points against the Houston Texans. First game in the DeMeco Ryans era, first game in the CJ Stroud era, Will Anderson. They make some splashes in the draft. They bring in a new coach from the San Francisco regime. Keg weighs in and says, I think the Texans on the money line is not a bad look at bet365. Texans are plus 375 for week 1 at Baltimore. Stuckey, is Keg onto something, or should he mix in a water and perhaps find a lake, an ocean, a peninsula nearby in Houston?
As usual, Keg needs to mix in a water. I'm not surprised by this. I can tell you firsthand that he has been asked politely to leave my wife's bar a few times for not mixing in a water. So this doesn't surprise me. Also coming from a Bengals fan, but if you're going to choose a money line dog, I don't see this one. Look, Harbaugh has, in the Harbaugh regime, the Ravens have dominated at home against rookie quarterbacks. A little pre-trivia. Who's the only rookie quarterback to win in Baltimore since Harbaugh took over in 2008? No one's done it in regulation. My boy, Mitch Bortles Trubisky did it.
Wow.
I think 3 or 4
He needs
years
to mix
ago.
in a water.
The only one to do it, but I just can't see. Look, Marlon Humphrey's a big loss for the Ravens, but with this Ravens new offense, you have a rookie quarterback making his first start on the road in a hostile environment with some offensive line questions due to injuries there. I can't see the Texans pulling this off. However, I will say, while Keg certainly always needs to mix in a water, this is a better option than parlaying all of the money line favorites.
I totally agree.
Raybon,
I think
Keg onto something here?
I don't hate it. I think he's on to the right mindset because let's be real. We've seen the Ravens. Yes, they played really well in week 1, but we've seen them stumble here and there. Like I remember a couple years ago, I think it was, we were all excited about the Ravens going against the Raiders, and we thought Lamar was going to come out and really be improved, and then they just dropped the game by 6 points. I think they were favored by 7. So this Texans team going to be better than a lot of people think. I personally think it's a better play on the spread. You know, a lot of times you see these, rookie head coaches first game on the road undervalued. They're hitting at about a 58% clip over the past 2 decades or so. But can they win the game? Yes. But I would take the spreads. But I'm not going to tell you to mix in a water because you're getting plus 375. And I think your mind is in the right place because, as Stuckey mentioned, we saw the Bengals drop a game to a Steeler team that nobody thought they were going to lose to. I'm higher on the Texans in the market, so I don't hate it. I'm not going to tell you to mix in the water because I like the thought process, but I'd rather take the spread.
2020, they blew doors in their home opener. 2018, they blew doors against the Buffalo Bills.
Dolphins?
2020 was
Josh Allen's debut. I think
How about the Ravens?
Ravens
Like
Ravens home
55-7 or something like that. Yeah, it was,
47 to 3, I think it was.
yeah, it's dangerous. I mean, but a loss is a loss. Like you don't lose any more money for if you get blown out. You know what I mean? So if you feel like if you feel like you want to do it, go ahead.
Yeah, the parlay portion of the discussion might require water with ice, and as you said, an ocean. And this one, a single glass might do. So as we know, as we approach week 1 Sunday, there will be more data that comes out as far as public sides. And one of the games we did discuss in that money line parlay idea, the Commanders, a touchdown favorite against the Arizona Cardinals, without Kyler Murray, with a new head coach, what they're going to do at quarterback. The Commanders are getting 80% of the bets. 80% of the bets. Stuckey, do the people need to be? Do they need to settle down here on all this Washington love, or is the public on the right side? Does the public need to mix in a water for their love for the Commanders in week 1?
I'll say no. They're okay. I mean, don't go overboard. Bet responsibly, as always. I don't. I project this, just under 7, so I don't see any value yet. We want to keep an eye on the status of Terry McLaurin, who could be important here as well. We still don't know who the quarterback is going to be for the Cardinals. The defense is bad. It's going to be a mess. But again, weird things happen in week 1, and laying a touchdown in the NFL with, an unproven quarterback is a risky proposition, but this Cardinals team is bad. If I had to bet one side, I'm going with the Commanders. I'm surprised it's, at the amount of love, but they're okay here as long as they're drinking moderately.
Raybon, this is one of the biggest public sides of the week. Josh Dobbs could be the quarterback for Arizona. The total's really low too. So how much scoring do we even get in this game to be willing to lay a touchdown? Is the public crazy?
I don't think the public is crazy. They're on to something here with what should be the weakest quarterback and the weakest team to take the field in week 1. But if I'm taking a side, I am taking the Arizona Cardinals. We've seen in week 1, underdogs by 6.5 or more are 39-16 against the spread, 71% since 2005. Again, like Stuckey said, weird things tend to happen. And we've got to remember the uncertainty. And this is why, especially early in the year, we don't like favorites, because uncertainty favors, getting points, getting juice on the money line, things like that. So it favors the underdog, essentially. So
does a low total, as Brendan pointed out.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So in this spot, we haven't seen Jonathan Gannon. We don't know exactly how he is going to coach this team, what he's going to bring to the table. I'm taking the Cardinals. I think the public does need to mix in a water. 80%. I mean, you're getting +7 against one of the worst teams in the league. Like, yes, the Cardinals probably are the worst, but Washington's probably bottom 5, bottom 6 in most people's power rankings.
We're handing out waters left and right to the public, to the people on X, Twitter. How about one of our own? Simon Hunter of the Favorites podcast. Typically, he'd be the one, if you tune into the Favorites podcast at Action Network, he'll be telling Chad Millman to mix in a water. But here, let's hear what Simon has to say. He weighs in on Monday night's game between the Jets and the Bills.
I am praying, Chad, this gets the 3. Please give me this 3. I'm dying for it to get there. I've been annoying the shit out of all these bookies all week, just saying, give me the 3. You're going to have the 3 by Monday. Just give me it now. Why are we wasting time at the 2.5? Anyone I talk to, it's like 4-1, 5-1, the money, the tickets, all of it on the Bills. Sometimes it's too easy. It just feels like it's setting up that way.
Sometimes it's too easy. Simon strikes me as that guy that you're hanging out with for the duration of happy hour. And you're like, can you just get this guy out of my face? Just give this guy what he wants. Just get out of my face. Well, do we need to give Simon a water, Stuckey? Do we need to talk him out of this? If indeed the line gets to 3, it is at 2.5 at bet365. The Jets as home dogs on Monday night.
I would say we can give him a half of a water. And we don't never have to hydrate Chad. Chad's always well hydrated and in bed by like 9 o'clock. But it's never the NFL. I will say the NFL is never too easy. Maybe if you're betting some low hanging props, but as far as sides are concerned, it's never too easy. It's one of the hardest markets to beat. So that's where you got to mix in a water there. Yeah, I will say, waiting for a number, getting a key number, all of those are, very, very sharp and things that you want to start practicing when betting the NFL. It's also a Monday night game. Unfortunately, people will chase, which you shouldn't do. And there's going to be a lot more action coming in. And maybe, I'm not sure where the market and public is going to go with this. Maybe because there's Aaron Rodgers, a lot of Jets love as well. But there's a chance maybe you get to 3. So I would agree that if you want the Jets, wait to see if it gets to 3. Betting it now at 2.5 is much more detrimental than if you waited and it went to 2. Than betting it now and then it goes up to 3 because of how key that number is. I also, if it went to 3, I would lean that way, but I prefer to tease the Jets up 2.5 to 8.5, classic teaser leg for this weekend. I do think that the Jets defensive line could cause a lot of problems here, especially early on in the season. That's the one area that I'm worried about with the Bills is that offensive line, and that could be a difference maker, but I think should be a close competitive game.
And some commitment to a running game that has been one of their criticisms outside of their quarterback. Raybon over at Action Network, 70% of the bets, 83% of the cash in on Buffalo at 2.5. Does Simon need to be talked down and stop being thinking things are so easy that if this does get to 3?
I mean, yeah, I'm mixing the water for him just for the easy comment because that just sounds like a way. You gotta stay humble. It's like Stuck said, it's never easy.
It's also still the Jets. Nothing's ever easy betting on the Jets, the New York Jets.
Yeah, and like I'm rocking the the Joe Klecko 1984 right now, because I just had to throw this on. I'm a Giants fan. I love jerseys though, and the Jets, their uniforms are so goddamn ugly now. I wish they could go back to the 90s ones, the 80s ones, the 60s ones. These are monstrosities, but the Jets at +3 at home are the right side. Now, that being said, Aaron Rodgers, new team, new offensive line, played a few snaps in the preseason, but generally he's kind of been relaxed. Could be some growing pains. Breece Hall coming back with a major injury. Could be a slow start. Dalvin Cook hasn't practiced much either. Could be a slow start. Hasn't run behind this line before. So don't be surprised if the Jets, at least offensively, get out to a sloppy start. I may also, want to look at the under in this game, because I think it's a toss-up, all things considered. So I would lean Jets. You're getting 3 points at home, but I would just expect the Jets offense to come out a little sluggish, and their defense is great. So I know the Bills are amazing, but the Bills offense may struggle a little bit as well. We saw that in the matchups last year.
In Raybon's eyes, he makes swag look easy with his outfit on the first episode of Happy Hour.